Section 1. Why property management actually fails.
Now, this brings us to a foundational problem highlighted in the text, a total blurring of boundaries. You see, a landlord's brain is naturally wired for ownership, right? Investment returns, property value, the asset itself. But a property manager's brain? That has to be wired for daily operations, systems, and de-escalation. In the Ugandan market, the source points out how incredibly common it is to see caretakers, folks usually hired just to clean and secure the premises, suddenly forced into property management roles they just aren't trained for. Think about it. What if a tenant demands a rent reduction because a security gate is broken? If you're reacting emotionally as an owner, feeling insulted that your property is being criticized, the situation instantly escalates. But if you're reacting systematically as a professional manager, you de-escalate the tension, log the ticket, and follow protocol. Mixing up these distinct roles just creates massive, unnecessary daily stress.
Section 2. Navigating Ugandan landlord-tenant law.
And this brilliantly illustrates a huge risk. When you really dig into the source material here, you realize ignorance of the law is a massive operational hazard. What's absolutely fascinating is the sheer disconnect between strict legal requirements, like mandatory formal written notice periods for rent increases or evictions, and what is actually practiced locally, which often relies on informal handshakes and verbal agreements. Let's say you try an informal eviction based on a handshake agreement. Suddenly, you have police involvement, illegally locked doors, and massive fines. No way. The true art of a property manager isn't dragging every difficult tenant to court. It's having the legal framework so deeply embedded in your initial lease agreements that you can handle disputes efficiently, safely, and entirely out of the courtroom.
Section 3. Managing people without losing authority.
Which brings us to this pivotal question. And honestly, when reading through the source, this felt like the ultimate test of a property manager. How do you handle difficult tenants professionally? At its absolute core, property management is people management. When a dispute inevitably pops up, human nature is to argue back, right? To get defensive, to get emotional. But to survive in this industry, your structured communication protocols literally must override your emotional reactions.
So, how do we actually achieve that? Well, it relies on strict documentation, starting well before the tenant even unpacks a single box. In Uganda, effective screening isn't just running a generic credit check. It involves collecting employment letters, verifying next of kin, and checking solid references. Because think about it, if you train a tenant during a structured onboarded process on exactly how to report a leaky faucet using a specific form or format, you completely bypass those heated "why hasn't this been fixed yet" arguments 3 months down the line. You establish early on that you are a professional operating a business, not just a buddy they can negotiate with on a whim. Setting the tone from day one is everything.
But hey, let's not forget, you aren't just managing tenants, landlords need managing too. If you are an owner watching this, you know you deeply want transparency and peace of mind regarding your asset, even if you don't explicitly say it. The source shows that achieving this trust requires consistent, structured monthly reporting. You also have to set boundaries early. A classic friction point in property management is during renovations. When does the property manager step in to handle tenant noise complaints, and when do they step back and let the contractors do their jobs? If a tenant is getting conflicting information from a manager and a contractor, it is an absolute nightmare. Defining these operational boundaries up front professionalizes the relationship and saves literally everyone from massive frustration.